October 20th, 1966, the mining village of Aberfan, Wales. The morning begins like any other, but in one house, 10-year-old Aberfan Jones tells her mother about a terrible dream. Her words, later documented, carry a chilling and childlike precision. "Mommy, I dreamt I went to school and there was no school there. Something black had come down all over it." Her mother dismisses it. "Don't be afraid, love. It was only a dream," she says. A typical reaction to a typical childhood nightmare. But this moment becomes a point of no return. The next day, October 21st, a thick fog hangs over Aberfan, hiding the peak of spoil tip number 7, a massive mountain of coal waste. The tip had already begun its slow, imperceptible slide. At 9:15 a.m. it collapses. An avalanche of 150,000 tons of coal slurry engulfs Pantglass Junior School. 116 children and 28 adults die. Aberfan Jones was among them. Her dream of something black had become reality. This story, confirmed by dozens of testimonies, will be the starting point of our investigation. We will return to it in Section 3 to reveal its true scale. This leads to the first paradox. Why did the British government, a bastion of pragmatism, create and fund an organization in 1967 to collect premonitions from across the country? Mainstream science considers this pseudoscience. We will find the answer in the archives of this British Premonitions Bureau in Section 2. Here is the second paradox. How have dozens of independent, repeatedly confirmed laboratory experiments shown that the human nervous system reacts to a random event seconds before it happens? We will analyze this shocking scientific data in Section 6. This is not speculation. These are documented facts that demand an explanation. In its first year, the British Premonitions Bureau received and processed 732 letters with premonitions from ordinary citizens. Think back. Have you ever had a gut feeling that seemed completely irrational but turned out to be true? This isn't a story about mystics, prophets, or psychics. It is a scientific investigation. We will conduct it in 3 key areas. First, cognitive psychology, how our brain deceives us. Second, statistical analysis, how to distinguish a real signal from random noise. Third, fundamental physics, which asks whether the laws of the universe could permit receiving information from the future. By the end of this video, you will stop dividing the world into I believe and I don't believe. Instead, you will have a set of 3 mental filters. They will allow you to analyze any premonition, from your own dream to a major news story. You will learn to separate illusion from anomaly. We will move from a world where foresight is a miracle to one where it is a phenomenon that can be measured, analyzed, and perhaps even explained. Here is the roadmap for our journey. In just 5 minutes, we will open the declassified archives of the world's only government-run organization for collecting premonitions. We will learn what they truly discovered. By the 15th minute, I will show you the most powerful cognitive trap. Because of it, 99% of all predictions are perfect illusions created by your brain after the event. And at the 21st minute, we will reach the very frontier of modern science, where Nobel laureates in physics suggest that the future can indeed influence the past. This is not science fiction. In 5 minutes, you will find out how the Aberfan tragedy compelled the British government to officially begin the hunt for profits among ordinary citizens. What drove a respected British psychiatrist, Dr. John Barker, to risk his scientific reputation in 1967? He created a government organization to collect dreams. It seemed like madness, but his motivation was entirely pragmatic. As a doctor who worked with the aftermath of the Aberfan disaster, he was shocked not by the event itself, but by the dozens of testimonies from people who claimed to have seen it in advance. For him, this became a medical problem. Barker and his team created not an interest club, but a serious analytical system. They used computers to process thousands of messages, searching for statistical patterns, and trying to build a real early warning system. Their very first documented success also turned out to be the primary evidence of the entire system's failure. In January 1968, the Bureau received a letter. Its author, Alan Hensher, described his vision of the Hickson rail crash the day before it happened. The details matched with frightening accuracy. It looked like a triumph. The system had worked. But the Bureau's archives hide the other side of the story. That same month, they received 467 other predictions of disasters, fires, floods, plane crashes. None of them came true. The hope of creating an early warning system collapsed under the weight of informational noise. The single success proved the approach was useless. How could they distinguish the rare true signal from thousands of false ones? But what if the Bureau had received a prediction that could have saved specific lives? Such a situation did occur, and it exposed the central paradox of their work. Among the thousands of letters were some that could have prevented real deaths. One described a plane crash over a specific region. The details were intriguing but too vague. There was no flight number, no exact date. This presented Barker and the authorities with an agonizing dilemma. Cancel all flights in the region? This would cause economic chaos and panic. Do nothing? This would risk hundreds of lives and accusations of inaction. This paralysis of action was the Bureau's curse. It was like trying to find a single hot grain of sand on a vast beach, knowing only that it's somewhere out there. Barker realized the key wasn't in isolated, sniper-like predictions, but in mass phenomena. This idea of a collective premonition became the Bureau's main hypothesis, and they had a perfect, tragic case to test it. The failure of finding lone prophets led them to a new question. Why might dozens of unconnected people see the same future event? Their new hypothesis was simple. The sheer volume and repetition of specific images and predictions could be the marker of truth that separates signal from noise. If one person sees a crash, it's a coincidence. If 100 people see the same crash in detail, it's a pattern. And they had the perfect case study to test this hypothesis, the very tragedy that spawned the project, Aberfan. We will return there not to hear Errol's story again, but to see what truly lies behind the most famous case of mass precognition in history. Errol Mai Jones's dream is the facade of the story. Behind it lies a fact that transforms a touching coincidence into a statistical anomaly. John Barker's investigation revealed that it wasn't just one child's nightmare. The key image, an avalanche of black slurry engulfing children, was documented by the Premonitions Bureau over 70 times. People across Britain, some as far as 150 miles from Aberfan, saw it. Many of them had never even heard of the village. This changes everything. Aberfan ceases to be just a tragedy, it becomes a pattern. Among these 70 voices were not only children, but also rational adults, whose visions were so powerful they were compelled to act. These were not just dreams. The Bureau's archives show that many premonitions were waking visions, sudden flashes of images, bouts of inexplicable anxiety. Mary Penrice, a 28-year-old chorister from the neighboring town of Merthyr Tydfil, experienced a panic attack 3 days before the disaster. She saw a children's choir on stage being swallowed by a black wave. This vision caused her to cancel her trip to Aberfan. This is no longer a matter of dream interpretation. It is a question of directly receiving visual and emotional information. Where does it come from? The collective unconscious? Some kind of information field? This massive information, useless at the same time, brings us to a dead end. Let's conduct a thought experiment. You are an operator at the Premonitions Bureau in 1966. A week before the disaster, you received 10 letters about black slurry covering children. What do? These messages don't mention Aberfan. There is no precise date, only a feeling that it will happen soon. The image of black slurry could mean an oil spill or a sewage line break. This is knowledge that provides no tool for action. Even if the Bureau had received all 70 signals, it could have done nothing. Evacuate every mining village in Wales? The information was like water passing through a sieve. You see that something is there, but you cannot hold it in your hands and use it. This pattern repeats itself, especially with technology-related disasters. The most striking example is the Titanic. The Aberfan phenomenon is not unique. It is part of a historical pattern that is particularly prominent around symbols of technological progress. The unsinkable ship, the fastest train. These images are deeply embedded in our collective consciousness and become magnets for anxiety. The story of the Titanic confirms this. There were more than 19 documented cases of premonitions of its sinking published before its maiden voyage. But the most shocking fact appeared 14 years before the tragedy. In 1898, Morgan Robertson published the novella Futility, which described the sinking of a ship named the Titan after hitting an iceberg in the Atlantic. His description matched the actual Titanic tragedy on 14 points, from the month of the sinking to the shortage of lifeboats. Aberfan is not the exception, but the rule. While some see this as proof of mysticism, statistics offers a simple and cold explanation. But as we will see, it is also incomplete. Statistics does offer a killer argument, the law of large numbers. Every night, 8 billion people have tens of billions of dreams. Every day, 100,000 airplanes take to the sky. Purely mathematically, someone will inevitably dream of a crash on the very day one occurs. It's like rain. With billions of drops falling on a city, a few will, by pure statistical chance, land in the exact same crack in the pavement. This isn't a miracle, it's math. But big data analysis reveals an anomaly. There is a constant background level of search queries like, dreamed of a plane crash. However, right before some major disasters, this level shows an anomalous, statistically significant spike. Statistics explains the background noise, but not these peaks. Our brain is a master at creating false memories, a fact that became especially clear after the most famous disaster of the 21st century. After September 11th, thousands of stories emerged about people who had supposedly canceled flights due to a bad feeling. Yet, psychological analysis found not a single confirmed case of a premonition before the event. On the contrary, it showed how, after the tragedy, thousands of people subconsciously rewrote their ordinary anxieties and dreams, turning them into prophecies. This is the false memory effect in action. An analysis of airline archives delivered the final blow to this legend. The number of ticket cancellations for the fateful 9/11 flights was 11% lower than average, not higher. People weren't fleeing these flights, they were trying to get on them. This mechanism of deception is called confirmation bias, and it's at work in your head right now. It's because of confirmation bias that we so clearly remember one dream that came true and completely forget 1,000 empty ones. You dream about fire. A week later, your neighbor has a house fire. Your brain instantly creates a connection, and the emotional shock permanently embeds this false prophecy into your memory. At the same time, your brain erases memories of dreams about water, falling, and flying that you had the same week. And that didn't come true. Out of the roughly 1,500 dreams you have in a year, your brain will highlight and remember the 2 or 3 that randomly coincided with reality. This bias is just one of many cognitive errors. Now, let's meet the main one, the one that underlies all belief in precognition. It's called survivor bias. We build our conclusions based only on the surviving data, on those 19 predictions about the Titanic that came true. We completely ignore the massive graveyard of millions of unfulfilled dreams and forecasts from that era. For most researchers, this is the final point that closes the topic for good. The mystery seems solved. But this is precisely where the most inexplicable part begins, because there are phenomena that neither survivor bias nor confirmation bias can explain. A meta-analysis of 26 laboratory experiments showed that the effect of the body's preemptive reaction to random events is statistically significant and real. We are on the verge of a scientific discovery made by accident, when scientists were trying to prove that precognition doesn't exist. And what they found turned everything upside down. How exactly does the master deceiver in our heads work? Imagine a World War II bomber returning from a mission, riddled with bullet holes. The obvious solution is to reinforce the areas with the most holes. But mathematician Abraham Wald proved that you should reinforce the places with no holes, the engine, the cockpit. Why? Because planes that took hits there simply didn't return. We only see the survivors. It's the same with dreams. We only hear the stories that survived, the ones that came true. Millions of unfulfilled anxious dreams are forever buried in silence. This simple logical error creates a perfect, self-sustaining illusion. If precognition were a skill, it could be developed. But the paradox is that those who try to do so show the worst results. Logic suggests that professional prophets should have this skill honed to perfection. But reality hits hard. A study by Philip Tetlock showed that the forecasts of 284 experts in politics and economics were worse than predictions generated randomly. Their accuracy was often below 50%, worse than a coin toss. Yet the most accurate and inexplicable premonitions, like those in Aberfan, come to ordinary people who aren't looking for them and are often frightened by them. The conscious attempt to see the future seems to completely block this hypothetical ability. This suggests that if the phenomenon exists, it operates on a deep, subconscious level that is distorted by our conscious mind. Our mind is a master not only of creating illusions, but also of editing the past. This mechanism is called hindsight bias, or the "I knew it all along" effect. You have a vague dream image of a large wave on a beach. 3 days later, the news reports a tsunami. Your brain instantly activates the memory of the dream but edits it. The wave becomes huge and destructive. The beach looks similar to the one in the news. In retrospect, the vague image is transformed into a prophetic dream. The brain treats memories like a camera lens. At first, the image is blurry, but once the correct focus is found, the brain instantly sharpens the past, creating the illusion that it was always clear. The mystery seems solved. But while psychologists were dissecting the illusions of the mind, physiologists, connecting sensors to the body, discovered something that fits none of these theories. Can we test for precognition while completely eliminating self-deception, false memory, and bias? Yes, if we shift from psychology to physiology. We need to measure not what a person says, but how their body reacts on an unconscious level. 3 key indicators are heart rate, skin conductance, and brain activity. Many of these experiments were set up by skeptical scientists to definitively prove the absence of the phenomenon. But they accidentally stumbled upon an anomaly. We are leaving the world of dreams and entering a sterile laboratory. The experiment we are about to discuss is as simple as a coin toss, but its results challenge one of the most fundamental laws of physics, the law of causality. A subject is shown a series of images on a screen. Most are neutral, a landscape, a chair, a cup. But some, chosen randomly, are emotionally charged, scenes of violence, erotica. The order of their appearance is generated by a computer at the last moment. Sensors connected to the body measure heart rate and skin conductance. At first glance, it's a simple reaction test, but a meta-analysis of dozens of such experiments has shown that 2 to 5 seconds before a shocking image appears, but not a neutral one, subjects exhibit a statistically significant spike in physiological activity. At that moment, neither the subject nor the computer knows which picture will be next. Our body feels the emotional future moments before it arrives. This phenomenon has been named presentiment. But this discovery was so controversial that it sparked a wave of disbelief. And it was the attempts to disprove it that led to an even stranger result. The scientific community's initial reaction was predictable: experimental error, a statistical ghost. Any anomaly is first considered an artifact that will disappear with more rigorous testing. But the numbers shatter this view. A meta-analysis of over 90 experiments conducted in 33 different labs worldwide confirmed the effect's existence. Its statistical significance was found to be thousands of times higher than the standards used in medicine to approve new drugs. The probability of it being a random chance is 1 in a trillion. Moreover, the effect was stronger in people who practice meditation and trust their intuition. This means that science has documented a real phenomenon that it cannot explain. We are dealing not with belief, but with instrument readings. This shifts the question from "does it exist?" to "what does it mean for me?" Because if the body knows the future, why don't we notice it? The answer breaks all logic. Your body is constantly receiving weak signals from the immediate future. But we don't hear them. Our conscious brain, armed with survivor bias and hindsight bias, generates powerful mental noise. This noise completely drowns out the weak but real signal of presentiment that instruments detect. We are all receivers picking up signals from the future, but our amplifier, our consciousness, is broken and introduces tremendous interference. It's like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a rock concert. The signal is real, but the noise of our consciousness is so loud that it completely overwhelms it. To understand the nature of this whisper, we must go beyond psychology and biology. We have been looking for the answer in the brain, but it may be hidden in the laws of the universe. Which branch of physics not only allows for, but, in some interpretations, requires the future to influence the past? Quantum mechanics. At first glance, it's an abstract theory about the strange behavior of particles. But Nobel laureates like Roger Penrose use ideas about retrocausality to build advanced models of consciousness. This is no longer science fiction, it is the cutting edge of fundamental science. We have a documented phenomenon, presentiment, that requires an explanation. And we have a branch of physics that provides a ready-made, albeit shocking, toolkit for it. It's like finding a lock and a key that fit together perfectly. This bold idea forms the climax of our investigation. It connects a child's dream in Aberfan, instrument readings in a lab, and the very nature of time into a single, unified whole. What if your consciousness is not entirely inside your head? We feel trapped in our bodies, but a fundamental law of the universe, non-locality, might also apply to our minds. In quantum physics, this is called entanglement. Imagine 2 magic coins. If one lands on heads, the other, on the opposite side of the universe, will instantly land on tails. This is a non-local connection in space. But physicist Roger Penrose has proposed that quantum processes occur in the microtubules of our brain's neurons. Our brain, according to this hypothesis, is a biological quantum computer. This means your consciousness is potentially spread out not just in space, but also in time. It may have access to information from its own future. Is there a mechanism in the equations of physics by which the future influences the past? Yes. It's called retrocausality. This doesn't mean you can send a letter to your past self and change history. It means that a choice made in the future places probabilistic constraints on what can happen in the past. This isn't just a mathematical trick. The concept is central to the transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics, proposed by physicist John Cramer in 1986. It describes a real wave carrying information from the future to the past. This weak signal from the future, this echo, is a perfect physical candidate to explain the presentiment effect in laboratories. It's like seeing ripples on the water from a stone that is still in midair. How could dozens of people, including 10-year-old Aberfan Jones, see the same image of a black avalanche? The Aberfan disaster, an event of colossal emotional weight, must have generated a powerful wave of retrocausality that spread backward in time. But there's a nuance that turns this theory into the only plausible explanation. The British Premonitions Bureau documented over 70 cases of premonitions containing the key image, an avalanche of black slurry engulfing children. This massive, recurring image could have been picked up by those whose brains are less cluttered with rational filters, like a child's. Precognition is not an active look into the future. It is the passive listening to the echoes of coming events, and the loudest tragedies create the strongest echoes. If the signal is real, why do we live in a world of unexpected disasters? Why couldn't the Premonitions Bureau prevent a single tragedy? The answer lies in a three-layer model of reality. Layer 1, the noise of cognitive biases created by our brain. Layer 2, the real anomalous signal, recorded by instruments and in cases like Aberfan. And Layer 3, the quantum mechanism of retrocausality that connects the first two. It explains how the signal arises, and psychology explains why we turn it into noise. The problem isn't the absence of a signal, but our inability to decipher it. We are like radio engineers who have just discovered radio waves but have not yet built a working receiver. We have the schematic for that receiver. The final section will give you the tools to distinguish signal from noise in your own life. We have reached the end of our investigation. You now have the three mental filters promised at the beginning. The first and most powerful is the map of cognitive noise. Survivor bias makes us see only the fulfilled predictions about the Titanic, while ignoring millions of unfulfilled ones. Hindsight bias retroactively turns our vague dreams into clear prophecies. And the conscious attempt to predict the future, as shown by the failures of experts, only amplifies this noise. The British Premonitions Bureau, founded in 1967, was the first attempt to create a filter for this noise. They failed, underestimating its power. But after filtering out 99% of illusions, we are left with 1% of anomalies that are impossible to ignore. After we have cleared away all the psychological clutter, two undeniable facts remain on the table. This is the second filter, the ability to see the real signal. The first signal is historical, the Aberfan phenomenon. 76 documented premonitions with the single image of a black avalanche, recorded before the disaster. The second signal is from the lab, the body's presentiment. Over 90 successful experiments in 33 universities worldwide have shown that our body reacts to an event seconds before it happens. This is not people's memories, but instrument readings. To ignore these two pillars of evidence is to reject the scientific method, and it is to explain this signal that the boldest theories at the intersection of physics and consciousness were created. This brings us to the third filter. It is not a belief, but a working hypothesis. It consists of two parts. The first, quantum consciousness, suggests our brain may be a biological receiver. The second, retrocausality, explains the nature of the signal it picks up, an echo from future events propagating backward in time. This model explains why premonitions are so often linked to tragedies. The emotional weight of an event acts like the force of an impact. A falling feather creates an imperceptible ripple. A falling boulder, a disaster, generates a powerful wave that is picked up by the most sensitive receivers. This moves precognition from the realm of mysticism to the fields of fundamental physics and neurobiology. And it leaves you with a final choice. Our entire investigation leads to two possible worldviews. The first, reality is predictable, and all anomalies are just statistical noise and errors of our brain that we desperately want to believe in. The second, reality is more complex, and within this noise, there truly exist weak signals from the future, that we have not yet learned to decipher. Now that you have seen all the evidence, the choice is yours. What is it really? A rare signal or just noise? Write just one word in the comments, signal or noise. Let's see which is more common. Regardless of your answer, this journey teaches us one lesson. Perhaps it is worth listening a little more closely to our intuition. But we must always remember the thousands of ways our mind can deceive us. True wisdom lies not in blind faith, nor in blind denial. It lies in the ability to tell one from the other.